Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling something.
Well, it's a concept that's not just about environmental science. It's called ecological intelligence.
Right. And it's a really radical idea. It's not about recycling bins or, carbon footprints. Not really.
No, this is much deeper.
Yeah.
It's a fundamental challenge to how we see ourselves,
Yeah.
to our very identity and our connection to the world.
Exactly. We've been through a whole stack of sources from deep evolutionary biology to Jungian psychology, even ancient mythology.
And our mission here is to pull out the core truths they hold. And some of them are pretty uncomfortable.
They are. The goal for you, the listener, is to come away with a really powerful answer to that eternal question of who we are.
But an answer that's rooted in biology, not just philosophy.
Precisely. We need to understand this wild and ethical imperative to recognize our links to the land. They aren't just, sentimental feelings.
They're biological facts. They're biological and historical facts. And by the end of this, we'll see how hard science and profound psychology and even poetry all point to the same crucial idea.
Which is
That the history of every single creature on this planet is, quite literally, inside our own bodies and minds right now.
Okay, so to ground this whole journey, our sources offer this really stunning guiding metaphor. It's from the Nguni legend of the Ziziphus mucronata,
Which they call the tree of life.
the tree of life. And if you look at its branches, the thorns are always in pairs. One is sharp, and it points outward, forward, always toward the future.
But the second thorn, it does something different.
Yeah.
It curves sharply back and inward. It points right back to where we came from, our origins.
And that tension,
Yeah.
the push forward and the pull back, that's the core of it, isn't it?
That is the dynamic definition of ecological intelligence. The legend says you have to look ahead, you have to plan, but you can never forget your roots.
It's such a simple, powerful idea. And what's amazing is how it's almost perfectly mirrored in the three requirements from the Oracle of Delphi, from Apollo.
Thousands of years ago, yeah. Apollo was the god of prophecy, of culture, and he laid out this clear path for self-rediscovery.
And it lines up perfectly.
It really does. His requirements basically anticipated this whole idea of ecological intelligence. The first one is the most famous, of course.
Know thyself.
Know thyself. That is the inwardly curving thorn. You have to understand your evolutionary roots, your instincts, the whole history of your own psyche.
And the second requirement was do no thing in excess.
Right. Keep the balance. That's the forward-pointing thorn. It's about harmony, whether it's inside your own body or, the whole ecosystem.
It's a warning against being consumed by any one thing.
Absolutely. You need a focus,
Yeah.
but you always have to maintain that peripheral vision, the ability to scan and adapt,
And the third one, honor the gods.
which is just like the Nununi honoring the ancestors. And the gods back then weren't just, single deities. They were the great archetypal forces.
The instincts.
The powerful instincts, the non-rational energies that move us. Fear, aggression, creativity, love. To honor them is to acknowledge those raw elemental forces inside you.
What really stands out, though, is the order. To keep the balance and to handle those primal forces, you have to do the first step.
You must.
You have to know thyself.
Precisely. Without that deep evolutionary understanding of our own psychology, without that, ecological intelligence is just impossible. It's a non-starter.
It's pointless to try and fix the split between the human world and the natural world if we don't even look at the split inside ourselves first.
Exactly. We have to confront our own self-deception, our own narcissistic impulses.
So that's where we begin, by grabbing onto that inwardly curving thorn, remembering our roots.
And that means starting with our evolutionary history.
All right, so let's frame this. Our sources point to this really provocative question from the Old Testament. It's asked of Job when he's complaining about his fate.
Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth?
Yeah, and usually that's meant to just, shut you up, to put you in your place.
Right, to silence human arrogance. But the sources we looked at suggest we should take it literally. It's not a rhetorical question. It's a personal evolutionary one.
So the answer is, we were there, in some form.
We are far closer to those foundations than we think, biologically, chemically. So the first step to knowing ourselves is just resetting our internal clock, our sense of time.
And that scale is just, it's mind-boggling.
It is. The known universe is somewhere between, 13 and 15 billion years old.
Which is already a number you can't really imagine.
You can't. So to make it graspable, we can use the cosmic year. It's a concept from Sir Patrick Moore.
Okay, what's a cosmic year?
It's the time it takes our entire solar system to make just one trip around the black hole at the center of the Milky Way.
One lap.
One lap. And that takes about 225 million of our solar years.
So if we use that scale, how old is the Earth?
The Earth is about 4.5 billion years old, so it's only
Oh,
20 cosmic years old.
20, that's it.
Just 20. And that's already humbling. But then you bring it down to a human level.
Oh,
A typical human lifespan, say 70 years. On that cosmic scale, you and I, we've lived for about 9 cosmic seconds.
9 seconds?
9. Our entire species has been a cosmic blink. And an individual life is just an invisible flicker.
That perspective is, well, it's more than humbling. It's a necessary antidote, like you said, to our species' ego.
It is. The ego that thinks our brief moment here makes us the center of everything.
So, okay, how do we connect that vastness back to us, to our biology? We start with the rock under our feet.
We start with the material reality. The world began as this molten ball, and it cooled down, and about 18 cosmic years ago, the first igneous rocks formed. Granite, basalt.
And the sources use the geological cycle of stone as a metaphor for human life.
A living metaphor, yes.
Yeah.
The skin of those first rocks eroded. Heat, cold, wind, water, all that material washed down into the seas.
And that became sedimentary rock.
Under immense pressure, yeah. And then finally, with even more heat and pressure, the metamorphic process, it transforms again into marble, slate, the stuff of mountain ranges.
And our lives are like that. We get weathered by experience, trauma, things accumulate, and then under pressure, we transform.
We can't escape it. And this leads to maybe the most striking claim in all the sources, the idea that the aboriginal water of life is still inside us.
Okay, that sounds poetic. What does it mean scientifically?
It's a profound molecular link. Scientists have measured the ratio of the 3 main cations, the positive elements, in the blood serum of all animals, us included.
Calcium, sodium, and potassium.
Right, and the ratio is always the same, 5 to 10 to 160.
And what does that ratio match?
It's a near-perfect match for the ratio of those same elements in ancient seawater from about 550 million years ago.
So, our blood is chemically similar to the ancient ocean.
It suggests an unbreakable link to the time when life first crawled out onto land. Our survival today depends on that salty history.
Yeah.
We are, in a very real sense, walking, talking bags of ancient seawater.
That is just staggering. Okay, so we have the geological, the chemical. Let's get to organic life. That started about 13, 14 cosmic years ago.
About 3 billion years ago, yeah. It started with simple forms, archaea, bacteria, and the sources say the first crucial step was the membrane,
The first boundary.
the first fence, the first decision, what to let in, what to keep out. It was the birth of identity.
Yeah.
But the real game changer was symbiosis, living together for mutual benefit. That happened about 10 cosmic years ago.
This was when the world was getting oxygenated.
Right, and you had these new oxygen-breathing bacteria competing with the older anaerobic cells, which couldn't handle oxygen. It was toxic to them.
So instead of war, they made a deal.
A revolutionary deal. The little aerobic bacteria were absorbed but not destroyed. They came on board and became the mitochondria,
At powerhouses of the cell.
our powerhouses.
Yeah.
They turn oxygen into the energy we're using to have this conversation. Without that ancient compromise, that symbiotic peace treaty, we don't exist.
And there's a fascinating genetic legacy from that deal, isn't there? The mitochondrial DNA.
Yes, our main DNA is from both parents, but mitochondrial DNA that comes only from the female.
The maternal line.
It's a direct, unbroken, traceable line back to our shared origins.
Okay.
And it proves that modern humans, Homo sapiens sapiens, are incredibly closely related.
Oh, more than we think.
Way more than our current tribal fights would suggest. We can trace us all back to a common bloodline through maybe just 6 or 7 biological mothers in Africa as recently as 60,000 years ago.
So the idea of a brotherhood of man isn't some poetic ideal.
It's reinforced scientific fact.
Okay, so we carry the ocean in our blood, a shared mother in our genes. So we have to talk about the brain that evolved out of all this. Paul MacLean's triune brain model.
MacLean's model is so useful here. So we basically have 3 brains layered on top of each other, each with its own memory, its own sense of time, its own intelligence.
And the key to knowing thyself is figuring out which brain is in the driver's seat.
At any given moment, yes.
Yeah.
You have to know who's talking.
So let's start at the bottom, the oldest layer, the reptilian brain.
The brain stem. We're talking 180 to 220 million years old. It's pure survival. Fight or flight, territory, mating, breathing.
And smell, olfaction.
Her primary driver, friend, foe, food. Its defining feature, ecologically, is cold-blooded indifference, opportunism.
It lives totally in the now.
Completely. I want it all, and I want it now. It has zero capacity for empathy or long-term planning.
The perfect example of this in the sources is the Nile crocodile.
The crocodile has been around 50 times longer than we have. Its success is its efficiency. It's unemotional, opportunistic, can go 2 years without a meal.
And it determines the sex of its own offspring just by where it lays the eggs.
Purely based on the depth and warmth of the sand. It's a completely environmental, non-sentient calculation. So when we act with pure short-term self-interest, with no empathy, that's the 200-million-year-old crocodile talking.
Right. Okay, moving up a layer. The paleomammalian brain, the limbic system, this is where things get more social.
This layer introduced complex emotions, aggression, fear, submission, but also, crucially, caregiving, bonding.
The big shift from just laying eggs and leaving.
The long-term parental investment, exactly. But maybe the most fascinating development here is the capacity for play.
Play seems almost frivolous, doesn't it? A waste of energy when you're trying to survive.
It's anything but. It has its own dedicated spot in the brain, in the thalamic region. And yes, at first it's a dress rehearsal for the kill, you're honing skills, figuring out who's dominant.
But it's more than that.
Much more. It's essential for social intelligence. It requires bonding, risk assessment, all in a non-lethal context. It's where the chemistry of fair play comes from.
Which raises a huge question. If fair play evolved millions of years ago, is justice really a uniquely human idea?
Not at all. And the science backs this up. There's that famous capuchin monkey experiment by Sarah Brosnan.
Right, with the cucumbers and the grapes.
Exactly. The monkeys are trained to trade a stone for a slice of cucumber, a low-value reward. They're fine with it. But then they see another monkey get a much better reward, a grape, for the exact same work.
And they lose it.
They go on strike. They literally throw the cucumber back at the researcher.
I'm disgust.
Total disgust. It's a clear demonstration of a primal sense of justice, an aversion to unfairness. The roots of trade unions and revolutions are right there in the capuchin brain.
That's incredible. Okay, so that brings us to the final, newest layer, the neomammalian leap, the tiny 2% genetic difference between us and chimpanzees.
A tiny difference with colossal consequences. And the key is the frontal lobe. It's massive and convoluted in humans.
And its main job is what?
Inhibition. The ability to deliberately postpone or delay an action. To override the reptile brain's demands, to calm the emotional impulses of the limbic system. It lets us say, wait a minute, let's think about this.
So without a healthy frontal lobe, we're just running on ancient instinct.
You're running on emotion and present tense demands with no ability to consider the future. The frontal lobe is the conductor of the whole orchestra. And this power is what defines our awareness. The sources lay out a 5-level hierarchy.
Okay, so we go from awake to alert to aware, and then self-aware. And a lot of animals share those first 4.
Many do, yes. They can sense things, monitor their own hunger or fear, but the 5th level is the game changer.
Aware that we are aware.
That's it. Self-reflection. And that, combined with language and sequential thinking, that's what gives us a unique personal identity. It gave us past, present, and future tense.
Which allows us to think about consequences.
And plan for the future. Invent abstract concepts like money or law. And, crucially, to imagine an afterlife. We feed on our imagination and our dreams, all from that tiny 2% genetic shift.
So, part 1 really anchored us in deep time. It's clear the foundation of our mind is ancient and wild. Now we shift to intellectual time, the last 500 years or so.
About 1 cosmic minute.
Right. And in that minute, there have been 5 great wake-up calls that have just hammered away at our species' ego.
Necessary shocks, all of them. The first one was from Copernicus, of course, proving the Earth revolves around the sun. We were no longer the center of the universe.
And it's amazing how we still haven't fully absorbed that. We still say sunrise and sunset.
Our language betrays us. We unconsciously put ourselves back in the center every single day. The ego just hates being dethroned.
Okay, so after Copernicus, the second big challenge was Newton.
Sir Isaac Newton. The laws of motion, of gravity. He showed that the universe was measurable, predictable. It worked like a giant clock.
Which was incredibly empowering.
It was. But it had this huge unintended consequence.
The Industrial Revolution.
Yes, this mechanistic worldview. It started to distance us, psychologically and physically, from the land, from natural rhythms. If the universe is just a machine, then the Earth is just a pile of raw materials for us to use.
The third wake-up call was Darwin, and this one was personal.
This was the thunderclap. It wasn't about distant planets or abstract laws. It was about us. We are related to all animals, and we aren't specially created above them.
And the resistance to that is still so raw.
It's incredibly deep. The ego desperately wants to be separate, to be special. But the science is just. It's
Mhm.
unequivocal. The Genome Project confirms it.
I love how the sources use that Carl Sandburg poem, Wilderness, to make this point.
It's perfect. He wrote it long before DNA was understood, but he knew he felt that internal zoo.
I got a zoo, I got a menagerie inside my ribs,
Right.
under my bony head, under my red valve heart. And I got something else. It is a man-child heart, a woman-child heart, for I am the keeper of the zoo. I say yes and no. I sing and I kill and I work.
That's it. The crocodile and the monkey are in there, and our new brain, the frontal lobe, is the keeper, deciding when to say yes and when to say no.
Beautifully put.
But the shocks kept coming. The fourth was Einstein, relativity.
And this just changed reality itself. E equals mc squared. Mass and energy are the same thing, and time and space aren't fixed, they're linked. Space-time.
So if Newton made the universe a predictable clock,
Einstein made it relative, dynamic, observer-dependent. He shattered the clockwork universe. But this is where a huge intellectual mistake happened. What was that?
people confused relativity, the physical fact, with philosophical relativism.
The idea that anything goes.
Exactly. Einstein was horrified by this. He was a man of deep, absolute ethical principles. His physical theory is about how measurements depend on your frame of reference, but the underlying laws of physics are still absolute.
But people took it to mean there are no absolutes at all. Moral, ethical,
And he felt his work was being misused to justify moral anarchy, which he hated.
which leads right into the fifth and maybe most destabilizing wake-up call, quantum theory.
Building on Einstein, yeah. This gave us the observer effect. The very act of looking at something changes it. Light is a wave or a particle depending on how you choose to measure it.
Our intention collapses potential into reality.
It seems to. And then you have Heisenberg's uncertainty principle on top of that.
You can't know both where a particle is and where it's going at the same time.
The more you focus on one, the fuzzier the other gets. So we live in two realities at once. Newton's predictable 3D world and Einstein's uncertain 4D world. Ecological intelligence has to navigate both.
It really feels like the whole project of the last 500 years has just been to take the human ego down a few pegs.
Systematically dismantling it piece by piece.
So let's connect this back to Apollo's command. Know thyself. This means we have to face our own psychology, what Jung called the shadow.
We have to. We can start with Freud's map. The id, the ego, the superego. The id is the raw, instinctual animal the reptile brain's demands.
The ego is the conscious self, the frontal lobe trying to manage it all.
And the superego is the conscience, the internalized rules of our culture. And Freud said our neuroses come from the ego being alienated from those primal drives of the id.
We repress our own animal nature, and it costs us dearly.
And Jung built on that with the shadow. The shadow is the sum of everything we don't like about ourselves. The greed, the selfishness, the aggression, the stuff we hide.
The part that always wants something for nothing.
Exactly. And if we refuse to look at it in ourselves,
We project it onto someone else.
that's the danger, projection. That's the root of xenophobia, of racism. If I refuse to see the potential for evil in me, I can easily pin it all on the other. It makes them seem monstrous.
The sources have such a great specific example of this. The insult. Corporate hyena.
It's a perfect case of anthropomorphic slander. We use that term for a greedy, narcissistic, gluttonous person,
Yeah.
all purely human traits.
And by calling them a hyena, we dump our own worst qualities onto an animal.
We project our narcissistic gluttony onto a highly intelligent, complex social animal just to avoid seeing it in ourselves. It lets us off the hook.
But the real animal is nothing like that. There's that Nguni praise poem for the Impizi, the hyena.
Which sees it as a friend to warriors, a vital part of the ecosystem, a living broom, two totally different views of the same animal, based on the culture's willingness to see reality instead of a projection.
It's the same thing with the snake. In ancient Greece, it's a symbol of healing.
Shedding its skin, renewal. That's why it's on the staff of Asclepius, the symbol of medicine.
But in the West, it's the agent of evil, the serpent in the garden.
That duality gets right to the cultural roots of the human nature split. And this was studied formally at the Theology of Survival Symposium in 1970.
And their conclusion was pretty damning.
It was. They concluded that traditional Christian attitudes, rejecting nature's divinity, putting man at the center with dominion, were a major contributor to our ecological crisis. A loss of soul, they called it.
This connects to the myth of Pan, the god of the wild.
The pagan god of instinct, horns and hooves. When Pan went underground, symbolically, the wild, instinctive psyche was repressed. And that's where we get the word panic. It's the terror when those repressed forces break through.
And this repression was formalized at the Nicene Creed in 869 AD.
A huge moment. Before that, soul, which was connected to depth, earth, the feminine, was a real counterweight to spirit or mind, the transcendent, rational, masculine. But at that creed, soul was basically written out of the official story.
Creating a hard dualism? Spirit mind is good, body matter is base.
Yes. And that split makes it psychologically okay, even required, to exploit the material world. And the ultimate justification for that was the dominion mandate from Genesis 1.28.
Subdue it and have dominion over everything.
That single line has fueled the inflated belief that we are the apex of creation, entitled to do whatever we want. To find ecological intelligence, we have to heal that split, and that means facing our own wild animal nature.
Okay, so if the problem is rooted in this dualistic thinking mind versus matter, us versus them, how do we start to heal that? The sources argue we need a new kind of language.
Or rather, a very old kind of language.
Poetry.
Why poetry?
Because poetry, the word comes from the Greek for to create or make, is the only form that can hold the tension between two opposites. Between yes and no, between science and non-science, the soul.
It's an attitude, not just a form.
Exactly. It's the voice we have left that might actually wake us up now that the factual warnings from science are being so widely ignored. So ecological intelligence isn't just knowing facts, it's an act of weaving.
Weaving and unweaving are reflections of ourselves on the earth. It's an act of protest against a purely mechanical view of the world.
There's that line from the poet Antonio Machado.
It's so direct. The wind, one brilliant day, called to my soul with an odor of jasmine. What have you done with the garden that was entrusted to you?
That question just bypasses all your rational defenses.
It speaks directly to the limbic system, to memory, to feeling. It forces you to confront your own personal responsibility.
This need for a new kind of connection brings us to maybe the most speculative part of this deep dive, the mind field theory.
This is a big one. We tend to assume the mind is locked inside the skull. But what if it isn't? What if it extends beyond the physical brain?
The idea of a mind field.
A field of information where our conscious and unconscious mental activity interacts with the world, not locally. And this idea gets a lot more plausible when you look at something like James Lovelock's Gaia hypothesis from the 70s.
Right, the idea of the Earth as a single, living, self-regulating superorganism.
A planet in touch with itself. That implies a kind of planetary intelligence, a massive interconnected information field, a planetary minefield.
And we see evidence of this kind of non-local communication in emergencies, like the 2004 tsunami.
A terrible but revealing event. Tens of thousands of people died. But at Yala National Park in Sri Lanka, almost no wild animals were killed.
They had already moved to high ground.
Hours before the wave hit. How did they know? Well, we know elephants can feel low-frequency infrasound through their feet from over 100 miles away.
They felt the alarm in the structure of the Earth itself.
A geophysical warning transmitted through the field. And it wasn't just animals. The Andaman Islanders, who live in an oral culture, they also moved to high ground.
How did they know?
Not from technology. They knew by watching the subtle changes in animal behavior and from their own traditional stories that warned them what to do when the ocean receded like that.
But the neighboring islands, the ones that had adopted modern tourism?
Catastrophic death tolls. They had replaced that sensitive field awareness with faulty modern systems. The brain often can't process what the body and ancient wisdom already know.
Which points to this critical link between the environment and how the brain itself is formed.
Yes, there's a genetic problem. We only have about 25,000 genes, which is not nearly enough to code for the 10 billion neural connections in our brain.
The math doesn't add up.
It doesn't. Which suggests our brain isn't just genetically hardwired, it's sculpted by the environment, and specifically by our emotional responses to the environment.
So emotion is the bridge. Jack Panksepp's work on the primary emotion command pathways, seeking, fear, care, play.
Those ancient emotional pathways, the crocodile and the fox within, are the internal drivers that reach out and connect with the world, and they're shaped and refined by our experiences over a lifetime.
If the mind does exist in a field, then something like synchronicity starts to make more sense.
Jung's idea of meaningful coincidences, linked by meaning, not by cause and effect.
There's the anecdote in the sources about the retired architect.
A long-distance runner. He developed severe shortness of breath-blocked arteries. At the exact same time, the pipes on his property's borehole corroded and clogged up completely.
He saw a direct connection between his inner world and the outer world, his own blocked pathways and the land's blocked pathways.
And the physical problem was fixed by surgery, sure. But the healing came from that synchronistic connection, that feeling that his body and the land were speaking to each other. It was the pattern recognition that let his mind heal.
And we're even finding a neurological basis for this kind of connection now with mirror neurons.
The key to empathy. These nerve cells in the frontal cortex, they fire when we do an action and when we see someone else do that same action.
So we don't just guess at what someone's intending to do, we feel it.
We intuitively, neurologically feel the intention of the other. And maybe not just other people.
This brings up the research on dogs and epilepsy.
A significant number of dogs can sense their owner is about to have a seizure, sometimes up to 45 minutes beforehand.
And the big question is, how?
Are they just picking up tiny changes in smell or body language? Or, and this is the minefield question, are they sensing the electrochemical event of the seizure extending beyond the skull into a field they can perceive?
And modern physics, with the uncertainty principle, it supports the idea of influence at a distance.
Within a shared field, yes. Connection can happen regardless of physical distance. So if we accept this deep connectivity, our whole attitude toward nature has to change.
Away from dominion and towards respect.
Towards the art of asking permission. There's the story the Inuit hunter asked how he prepares for hunt. He just says, I listen, that's all.
It's about deep listening, not immediate action. It reminds me of that David Wagoner poem, Lost.
Stand still. The forest knows where you are. Let it find you. Asking permission is about respecting that critical distance and just listening.
And this all leads to the ultimate expression of this intelligence, what hunters call becoming the animal.
Which isn't mimicry. It's an intuitive, subliminal tracking of the other's intelligence. It's turning yourself inside out, letting your psyche loosen its boundaries, and tuning into the shared flow of the world.
That's the ultimate expression of those mirror neurons, feeling affinity, reading the wind, finding that silent belonging with the non-human world. So this deep dive has covered, 15 billion years? From the paired thorns of the Sisyphus tree to the language of the mind field.
It's a huge scope. But it all comes back to Apollo's first command. Know yourself. That means facing the shadow, recognizing the crocodile and the fox within you.
And understanding that our modern anxieties are the price we pay for cutting ourselves off from those primal animal drives.
But the sources are really clear on one thing. This is not about some romantic return to a perfect golden age.
Right. Perfection is a human idea. Nature doesn't do perfection.
Nature does constant flux, constant evolution. And this ecological intelligence is something that is evolving right now out of our dire need.
Because of the pressure we've put on the planet.
We took that Genesis line about being fruitful and multiplying way too literally. We just focused on the numbers.
But to be fruitful ecologically means being fertile in our thoughts, in our creativity.
And to multiply means embracing the multiplicity of all life, all expressions on Earth. If we need to subdue anything, it's our own inflated idea of human divinity.
We are, as the sources remind us, the sole survivors of at least 18 different bipedal species.
And that unique position comes with a massive responsibility. We have to develop what the analyst James Hillman called Adam's eye.
What does that mean?
It's the practice of wrestling with the beasts inside us, learning when to say yes and when to say no to the crocodile's urges, the fox's cunning.
And when we do that, that primal energy gets transformed. It gets a human face.
And we can finally see animals and the land for what they are, intelligences in their own right, not just screens for our own projections.
The whole journey seems to end in this radical act of connection. One source suggested that to pray unceasingly is just to be constantly mindful of the patterns of connection between everything.
And this brings us to the final thought. The silent contract that all this science and poetry points to. It's a molecular contract.
Okay.
If you look at the chlorophyll molecule, the thing that makes plants green, and the hemoglobin molecule in our red blood, they are almost identical. Their complex ring structure is the same blueprint.
Almost identical. What's the difference?
One single trace element at the very center. Chlorophyll has a magnesium atom, which makes it green. Hemoglobin has an iron atom, which makes it red.
What silent contract does that shared chemical history, that molecular kinship, imply we have with every single leaf on every tree?
It binds us forever to the very lifeblood of the planet.